Guys, the time has come for us to talk about Infinity War, and this is going to be epic, and I'm so excited. I have with me Aaron Welty.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
And in a first for the show, we have it's a Christian geek podcast crossover event, because we also have with us Rob Goudie of Geek Orthodox, which, by the way, let me just say, that is the very best name for a Christian geek podcast ever.
Yes, well, I wish I could take credit for that name, but it was Jeff Baker, one of my co-hosts, that came up with that name. But hello, nerds. Good to be back on the pod waves.
Yeah, so when I was trying to come up with the name for this podcast, like, I was so jealous of, like, you guys, and like there's another geek Christian podcast that was just called The Christian Nerd. I was like, these things are like so obvious and like really good and succinct. Like, what am I gonna do? And I was like, I brainstormed all kinds of things that weren't good, and eventually came up with this. And so, anyway.
Yeah, we were actually approached a couple of times by people that wanted to take the name.
That does not even surprise me.
Yeah, we were like, no dice.
Like, honestly, it's something like since you really weren't putting out content, like I even like considered like trying to make that happen as well. But I'm as I understand it, you guys are kind of back up and running, and you've got some plans for some additional content after having been dark for a while.
Yeah, so I mean, the short story of it is that, you know, our lives all just kind of got busy and we fell off the wagon for a really long time. But right now I'm recording with nemesis of the show, Peter. I'm recording with him the Westworld recap episodes now that Westworld season 2 is back, and I'm thinking that that's going to start up more regular recording, and we have a couple of ideas because I don't think it's going to come back in the same form that it was before. But we have some ideas of different ways that we can produce content and get it out there. It's something that, you know, has always kind of been in the back of my mind, and I don't want it to just go dark forever, but yeah, I mean, definitely when you're not getting paid to do this, life can get in the way sometimes.
Right. Yeah, that definitely happened to me leading up to this, and I had like 4 episodes that I needed to get out, and like usually I had been very, very good at putting out episodes consistently ever since I started, like back in November, and like clockwork on like the schedule that I had set, they were coming out and they were great. Well, I don't know if they were great, but they were at least coming out on time. and like for the last 3 episodes, I just like right before this, I'm recording back-to-back episodes. Right before this, I recorded the Black Panther episode, and the 2 or 3 episodes before Black Panther all came out like in the last like 10 days, which is, you know, bonkers. But anyway, all right, let's actually introduce you, Rob, just a little bit. When we have new co-hosts, I like to talk to them a little bit about what kind of geek are you, and what first like sort of ignited an interest for you in geek culture.
What first ignited the interest? I think that my dad has always really been into sci-fi and fantasy. So from a really young age, I was kind of like, you know, my dad introduced me to Star Wars and Star Trek right away, and had me reading the Shannara Chronicles book.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, so after, you know, getting into that, I was just like huge into fantasy, loved it. And
yeah.
You know, when I was younger, also superheroes, but I think that I grew up in like the golden age of 90s animated series. You know, yes. You had your Batman, your Spider-Man, even the Superman X-Men animated series was good, and X-Men.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
okay,
yeah,
cool.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of where I broke into it for sure.
So then at this point, what would you say your like primary like geek specialty is?
It's tough for me to say because like I feel like I'm spread really kind of thin across a bunch of different things. Like right now, okay. I read comics. You know, I'm into I've gotten more into indie comics than like the the big two.
Right.
That's kind of another conversation, but
absolutely, yes, it is.
But yeah, so that part of it, and I've always been into movies, and I got into playing like Dungeons and Dragons a little while ago, and like really enjoy doing that kind of thing. So I just really enjoy like fantasy nerdy things. But
awesome.
I've kind of like sample from all over the buffet instead of parking at one spot.
Right. Okay. Cool. Well, gentlemen, let's go ahead and just launch into Infinity War. We're going to do something a little bit different. Like, I haven't done this before on an episode, but since there's so much great stuff, and we simply can't possibly like get to everything that's awesome about this movie.
So we're assuming we all like the movie then. Is that
I would hope so.
This is going to become a really interesting conversation if we're going to like actually debate whether it was good or not.
No, I'm just playing. I liked it.
Okay, good. I mean, that would have been sort of awesome in its own way, but okay. No, we're gonna have a quick lightning round, and we're each gonna highlight some of our favorite moments from the film. And what I asked you guys to do is prepare your favorite gag or like humorous moment, your favorite character moment, your favorite like character performance in general, and your favorite action beat. So Rob, why don't you go ahead and kick us off and just go through your list, and what really worked for you in those categories.
Absolutely. So my favorite gag was when they were fighting Thanos on Titan, and Spider-Man kept coming through the portals.
Yes.
And saying, "Magic punch, magic kick."
Yeah.
I thought that stuff was great.
Yeah, that was a really, really good humorous moment.
Yeah.
Aaron, what was your favorite gag?
Probably the whole interaction between Thor and Rocket, where he's calling him Sweet Rabbit all the time.
Yeah.
To the point where I started to wonder a couple days later, what would an actual like Zeppelin-esque ballad called Sweet Rabbit about Rocket and Thor actually end up sounding like?
That is hysterical. One of my favorite gags was the thing where Drax was telling them how he could stand still and become invisible, and then Mantis comes in and blithely says, "Hi, Drax," and then he just sort of storms away in disgust. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, there was a lot of good stuff around the Guardians for sure.
Yeah, well, and they are sort of like the default like comic relief,
absolutely,
just because of who they are as characters. Rob, what really worked for you in terms of character moments?
I think we'll probably get into this a little bit more later, but when Thanos killed Gamora, that whole bit of him having to give up something that he actually loves.
Yeah.
That really worked for me in terms of it being a character building moment for a character that we really needed a character building moment for, because he's new to this whole thing. I mean, we've seen him in like clips of, that intimidating figure, but haven't seen any character moments from him, and I thought it was really effective.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Aaron?
Oh, that's a tough one because there are quite a few, but if I had to zero in on one or two, I would probably say essentially the setup between Gamora and Quill when they're having that conversation, and she asks him, this is if this happens, if a certain thing happens,
you don't have to. We're not dancing. We're not dancing around anything. Just say the thing.
So if if Thanos gets a hold of me and is trying to figure out where the Soul Stone is, because I know.
Hold on. Sorry, just a second before you actually do say the thing. We are spoiling everything. This is your official warning. If you haven't seen Infinity War yet, first of all, what's wrong with you? And second of all, stop listening right now and go see it.
Absolutely.
Proceed, Aaron.
Yeah. So the interplay between the two of them when they're talking about the Soul Stone and the fact that she has an inkling of where it is and what she needs him to do in terms of, hey, if I get caught, I need you to kill me to make sure that Thanos doesn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great character moment for both of them, but it also clues the audience into where their relationship is at after the end of Guardians 2.
Yeah. For me, it's there's a little bit of a tie, and I'm gonna choose one over the other because I want to talk about one of them in a little bit greater depth later on. But for me, one of the very most effective character moments in this movie is right at the end when Steve realizes that they have lost. And the way that he portrays like that sort of crushing realization that good did not triumph on this day was, to me, I think he just sold that moment 100%, and it was awesome.
Yeah. If I could sneak another one in there, because I did have a backup, it would have been when Peter Parker dies at the end. Right?
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah, like, I mean, growing up, Spider-Man was like my favorite hero, and then it kind of really brought the whole thing to reality. To see like him actually being scared of dying. It was rough to watch.
Yeah, I read something about that whole thing that, because he sort of seemed to be more aware of it and able to sort of process it more than most other characters. And I read a little thing that sort of speculated that was because of his spider sense, that he sort of perceived it coming to a greater degree than most of the other characters did, and also since he has at least some kind of a healing factor, that might have helped him to hang on a little bit longer too, and that sort of makes it just all the more like horrific when you like know that you're dying and like that, and absolutely it was just gut wrenching, like his whole like little monologue there. How about just like what character do you guys think was the best performed in this movie?
I'm gonna go with Thanos because this is the Thanos movie. Right?
It really is the Thanos movie. I think you're right.
Yeah. Like I really think he's I think most people don't even really realize after the first viewing that he's the main character of this movie.
Yep.
Like,
he totally is.
Yeah.
Yep, it's true. Yeah. How about you, Aaron?
For me, it's probably a toss-up between Gamora and just the amount of kind of character development we got for her in this movie, which I think a lot of us didn't expect. But also at the same time, you guys were talking earlier about Peter and his death scene and kind of what we see. For me, that took me all the way back to the first time I read what I think was issue 150 of Ultimate Spider-Man, when they ended the first run where he dies and you had the all the panels and no words and it's just images, and I was just right back there 10 years ago in time watching something like that play out right in front of me.
Yeah, man, for me, and this might be a slightly offbeat choice, I really, really loved the portrayal of Vision in this movie. I think that it was an exceptionally effective performance. I loved that Paul Bettany got to play part of his role without tons of makeup, and having read about all of these things for the last 15 odd years or so, and all of the trials and travails that all of these poor actors go through to do their makeup stuff. It